thank you for the participants for the nice presentation I have went through. My presentation is a little bit divergent, a little bit from what have been already presented so far. It's a cloud-based framework for COVID-19 media classification, information extraction, and trend analysis. I'm presenting on behalf of Dr. Hadil. She is the first author, but unfortunately she is not available, and then I am presenting on her behalf. The outline of the presentation, I will start with an introduction and background to motivate the need for classifying and analyzing the huge media or news that's generally propagated from the COVID-19 pandemic, and how we can classify and summarize this news in a way that we analyze them and present them with the appropriate way to the concerned parties. In fact, we will present a framework that, as the title shows. The framework is generally does as I said, the classification, pre-processing of the news, and data application of machine learning, feature extraction, and then predictions, then visualizations. To validate some of the features of the framework, we have done two experiments. The first one is a case study, which is for local news from what we call Khalij Time, a well-known newspaper in the Gulf, which has a version online at UAE. And the other one is from the CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation news. And finally, we try to apply and use the features and the modules of the framework in order to validate the proof of concept and the main modules of the frameworks. Finally, we talk about some features and work that are ongoing on that project. Of course, you all know that the COVID-19 have hit the world now since December 2019 or January 2020. And then, of course, there are lots of measures that have been implemented, and including lockdown and then social distancing and all these stuffs. And then, of course, people, they are geared towards the news to get updated. They are locked down in where they're home or there, and then they are very curious to know what is the evolution of the trends. It's a global pandemic, and the data has come from different places in the world, and you are not you shouldn't be limited to the news of the country where you are, because variants of the pandemic or the virus appear in other countries and can affect your country or where you are. And then you need to see the trend of the news and what's happening in the world, for example, including vaccine card, all these stuff, efficiency of the vaccines, measures that are taken by your country as well, globally, if you want to travel around the world. Then there is, as I said, a huge data that are generated through the news corporations or sources. And then we need to pre-process this data. We need to do some media transformation and summarization of this data, information extractions, then analysis of this data. That will help individuals as persons to know the trends of the news, get updated about the most important information locally and internationally, as well as having some correlation between those news that are spread across the world, which will help people, as I said, and decision makers as well, to develop some effective resource provision and urgent interventions. Summarize and extracting the most relevant information, produce different representation, including graphs, tables, summary views, will help governments, for example, to have some insights about the global news and the significance and the impact on the economy and the healthcare, transportation, manufacturing, and tourism, and others. It will help researchers as well to have new classification and warning of the pandemic, updates, informatives, documentary, local and international information that will help establish kind of repository that will help researchers to drive some impactful research. Adopting an automated cloud-based workflow model, which will be used to represent the full life cycle from collecting the data to pre-processing the data, then to analyzing and finally visualizing the results of news classification, feature extraction, and visualization. This is an overview of the framework that we propose. Of course, we have 3 main modules, and we have a cloud infrastructure or platform that supports all these modules with the resources on the fly. It's scaled with the need of these resources. It deploy as well different machine learning, visualization, algorithms that can be used to feed the resources and the needs in terms of processing and analytics. The data is collected from sources, and then there is a module that generally do pre-processing of the data. I'm talking here about text, but the next steps of this project is to handle also audio and video data. And for the text, the pre-processing well-known techniques are word split, statement splits, stop words removal. These are kind of steaming, post tagging. All these are techniques that are related to the. Once this is done, a repository of pre-processed data can be stored on the cloud. And then the next module, which is the COVID news information extraction based on machine learning, encompass features of or tasks related to feature extractions of that pre-processed data, and then application of different techniques that's well known, if IDF, LSI, multi-words, and so forth. Once the feature is extracted, then it is fed to the next in the pipeline, which is machine learning model selection, where we, for example, we select the most appropriate modules that maximize the accuracy. I mean the prediction accuracy of the classification accuracy of the data. We have used naive-based decision tree, neural networks, hybrid model, and so forth. And then we use, of course, classification test classifier to classify the results of these training data using different metrics, accuracy, RMZ, and so forth, R square, and so forth. And then once the class is done, then we can do the prediction using some selective machine learning models. Finally, after that, we present some recommendations in terms of summary, detail of the news, representation of the news, and we can as well do some visualization. Visualization here can have different forms, using different tools to visualize and summarize this data to different stakeholders. These are the modules that I just explained, which is the text pre-processing, the news, information extractions, predictions, and recommendations. To validate or to just go through the most important features of the, as I already mentioned at the beginning, is we try to make sure that this is doable, and the things that we have implemented, proof concepts of the, and apply the tools, the machine learning tools, the feature extractions, pre-processing, and then visualization at the end. We had, we adopted 2 parts for the evaluation. The first one is a case study where we use data from a well-known newspaper in UAE, is called Khalij Times. And then we use 2,566 media articles between the duration of the 1st of February to 15th of May to analyze this data, and then predicted, and then presented to the users. And the second experimentation is we use Kaggle, and then we limit, or we as a source of data, we get it from the Canadian broadcasting channel CBC. News coverage about the COVID-19. And we have extracted or used 3,500 text media articles about COVID-19 from 1st of January to 26th of March 2020. The data set encompasses the author's names, the title, the date of publication, the summary description, the article, and the URL. This is the first. I just show some of the first. This is the case study I have shown. This is the map of UAE, and this is the word map that's generally generated from the, for example, from the data collected from time use. And then it gives you, for example, based on the weight or the importance of those words, how they generally link it to different location. For example, here, coronavirus, health, people, case, policies, pandemic, country, etc., COVID. Those are generally represented in the map, and then with different location and source of the news that are extracted from those Khalij Time newspaper. From the same data, here we just the frequency of words that are in these articles. Here we don't limit only on the frequency of the word, but also the sentence, the whole sentence. And we study the frequency, the coherence between the topics that are represented in these articles and the percentage of cases that are generally represented. And these are represented in a circular stacked bar chart, where you see, for example, here some information, Ministry of Health, Communication, Ministry of Health and Preventions, and of course it shows here May, April, February, and March, and the main topics or title that are extracted from those news. Just to give an overall tendency of the subject here, not the word that are discussed in the and with the percentage, of course, of their appearance or in those articles. You may see, for example, Ministry of Health, because it is source of information for quarantine, for regulations, policies, etc. And then most of, a good chunk of the information comes from this source of information. You may find information about statistics that tackle the total number of cases. And most of the articles, for example, in addition to the information they provide, they focus on the updates of the cases that are appear in the news. That's in terms of the first case. That's another representation of the, sorry, there is a missing C here. This is the second source of information, which is based on the CBC news about COVID-19. And here is the first information extraction based on machine learning. And of course, we use here a tool called Vox Viewer, and it shows here how the frequency or the importance of the word that are represented and discussed in Canada during the period from, as I said, January to May. Another experiment we have done is the classification analysis, and we looked at the trends of how the news got what you called how the news evolved during these 3 months, and it has classified this into 8 clusters. Sorry for the picture, because it's condensed a little bit, it's not very clear, but it shows how the news got converged from month to month across the different months, and how it's evolved from January to May, and what are the main characteristic clusters that have been identified. And then I will not go into the detail of how this evolution is done, but at the beginning of January, the news are around the Wuhan, how the pandemic got emerged in that place of the world. What are the lockdown measures that have been implemented? That was in cluster 1 of the first month. Then in the cluster 2 or 3, we talk about the Asian countries and how they are going towards the lockdown. Then cluster 225, we focus on Canada and China respectively, as CBC is a Canadian news channel, etc. And then when we move to the month of February, the news got diverged a little bit into more measures, because now the pandemic hits and start to spread over the world. And then we are talking about what are the distanciation measures, what kind of lockdowns and preventions that can be done, to wearing the mask, washing the hands, using sanitizers, etc. and so on. Yes. Yes. Sorry. Then towards cluster 4 of the month of February, we talk about the federal government and Canadian global industries, how they are affected with the pandemic, and what is the Trudeau, which is the Prime Minister, action to those risk of economic crisis in the country. And towards the last cluster, we focus on to virus symptoms, labs, clinics, etc. and so forth. However, the last month, the news also diverged a little bit into more constraint and more policy-based information that citizens have to obey or have to follow in order to protect themselves against the pandemic, and in addition to some information that's focused on economic impact of the COVID-19 on Canadians. And towards the end, we talk about the danger that this may cause on the population. That's in general kind of the evolution of the news that has been analyzed across a couple of months, and then how they are clustered, and then how the evolution has been. This is the same thing, just we presented in a pie chart where we saw the 8 clusters, and then the information that are related in terms of words, number of words, and topics that are covered in this. I will not, I think I am within the time. As future work, we are, because the recommender system we have presented us still at the early stage, we are thinking to extend it by doing some new data analytics, propose some data-driven recommendations. We are thinking, to extend this model or this framework to cover as well some video and audio news, where we have to handle the other challenges can be raised here on streamed data analytics. Analytics of those data has specific features which has to be considered, which is different than treating the text and classifying the text. And then finally recommend some recommendation based on this audio and video analysis and visualization. This is all what I have. At the conclusion, we presented an initial framework that supports stakeholders in navigating the information and taking well-informed decision, both for people as well as decision makers. The framework is implemented 3 modules that are text pre-processing, machine learning-based news extractions, and prediction and visualization module over the cloud. The results of the framework evaluation demonstrate the capability of our framework for both public and decision makers in classifying the news, as well as predicting and comprehending meaningful insights and contents and connection to cope with the pandemic spread control and interventions. This is all what I have. Thank you for the listening, and if you have any questions, I